Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and marketing expert covering Trump threatens to ban all foreign students from attending Harvard University. And it's not just Harvard, they could do this at any university they chose, because these universities need the federal government's permission to bring students in from overseas. From Breitbart, Trump administration says Harvard must provide info on foreign students' misconduct or all will be barred. And from the Harvard Crimson, Department of Homeland Security threatens to revoke Harvard's eligibility to host international students unless it turns over disciplinary records. This would be Harvard not being able to have students continue their education if they already started there, new students. They could take all the domestic students that they wanted, but no one from outside the United States, which, like other universities, is a huge percentage of Harvard's student population. At Harvard, it's about 27%, which is like an astronomical number. At Columbia, it's over 50%. In addition to this fight, the Trump administration might be revoking Harvard University's tax-exempt status. This would cost them $500 million a year, and that's not even including taxing their endowment, the $53 billion they have saved up. The Washington Post says that they can't do it. Harvard says that it would be illegal. But the truth of it is, in a 1983 Supreme Court decision, a university lost its tax-exempt status by preventing students from interracial dating. That was enough to lose the tax-exempt status. It's discrimination. Harvard's already gotten in trouble for their admission processes. And that's not the only thing going wrong at Harvard. So could it be done to them? Yeah, it absolutely could be done to them. From Breitbart, Harvard must provide info on foreign students' misconduct, or they're not going to be going there anymore. The Trump administration announced Wednesday that Harvard University must provide information on misconduct involving foreign students by April 30th, or else it will lose the ability to enroll them at all. Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem said in a press statement that she was canceling $2.7 million in grants awarded by her department. That's a whole other separate issue. One of these federally funded grants produced a study disparaging conservatives as a security risk, and another that she said had promoted public health propaganda about the coronavirus pandemic. And that's not all. The secretary also wrote a scathing letter demanding detailed records on Harvard's foreign student visa holders' illegal and violent activities by April 30th, 2025, or face immediate loss of Student and Exchange Visitor Program certification, SEVP. Quote, Harvard bending the knee to anti-Semitism, driven by its spineless leadership, fuels a cesspool of extremist riots and threatens our national security, said Secretary Noem. Quote, with anti-American pro-Hamas ideology poisoning its campus and classrooms, Harvard's position as a top institution of higher learning is a distant memory. America demands more from universities entrusted with taxpayer dollars. This is the thing that these universities all forget. They depend on the federal government a lot more than they think they do. They're not an independent institution, not if they take federal dollars, not if they need the Department of Homeland Security to allow them to bring in students. And that's just the beginning of what they need to exist. These universities also need the permission of oversight bodies like accrediting organizations. If you want to find out how independent all these universities are, just take away all the federal support for them. Then see what happens. Secretary Noem continued, since Hamas's October 7, 2023 attack on Israel, Harvard's foreign visa-holding rioters and faculty have spewed anti-Semitic hate, targeting Jewish students. With a $53.2 billion endowment, that's the savings that Harvard has, Harvard can fund its own chaos. DHS won't. And if Harvard cannot verify it is in full compliance with its reporting requirements, the university will lose the privilege of enrolling foreign students. Harvard has struggled with anti-Israel encampments and anti-Semitic protests since the October 7th attacks by Hamas, which dozens of Harvard student organizations blamed on Israel in a signed statement. That was the first sign that maybe there's some problems at Harvard. More than 1 in 4 students at Harvard is an international student, with 27% of the entire student body, graduate and undergraduate, some 6,700 students from abroad, according to the university's own data. There's a correlation between elite, expensive colleges and the likelihood of anti-Israel encampments. The high presence of foreign students at more elite institutions may be one explanation for that phenomenon. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has said that the U.S. has already deported hundreds of foreign students who were involved in radical protests in the past 18 months, which have brought anti-Semitism to many campuses. Harvard, for its part, has vowed to fight the Trump administration's directives on fighting anti-Semitism, among other changes, though some $9 billion in federal grants are at stake, $2.2 billion of which have already been suspended. And next year, there otherwise would have been more federal grants and contracts. So even if Harvard was to just lose this $9 billion, there'd be more money to lose next year. And even this leverage of being able to remove their foreign students would be something that would just devastate Harvard. CNN reported Wednesday that the Trump administration is also ordering the Internal Revenue Service to prepare to revoke Harvard's tax-exempt status, which has allowed it to amass a $53 billion endowment. Because if Harvard had to pay taxes on the money that it earns off of its endowment, that's estimated at $500 million a year, just that sum of money. And from the Harvard Crimson, DHS threatens to revoke Harvard's eligibility to host international students unless it turns over disciplinary records. What the federal government wants to see is what students were making problems, what problems did they make, and what did Harvard do about these things. Harvard was given the opportunity to handle all these things on their own, and they didn't handle them. Now the federal government is stepping in and not giving them the opportunity to fix this problem on their own. The Department of Homeland Security sent Harvard a letter on Wednesday, threatening to revoke its eligibility to enroll international students unless it submits information on international students' disciplinary records and protest participation. And part of the problem for Harvard here is a lot of those students, if they did any bad things and there's any record of it, a lot of those students are going to get their visas revoked. They're going to go right back to their home countries. Harvard doesn't want that to happen, but there's really no way for Harvard to win here. Their old way of doing business is over now. The letter threatening Harvard's authorization to host international students, which was signed by Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, accused Harvard of creating a hostile learning environment for Jewish students. Quote, "It is a privilege to have foreign students attend Harvard University, not a guarantee," the letter read. American universities may host international students on student visas only if they have certification under the Student and Exchange Visitor Program. The Wednesday letter calls on Harvard to provide information regarding visa holders' known threats to other students or university personnel, obstruction of the school's learning environment, and any disciplinary actions taken as a result of making threats to other students or populations or participating in protests. Harvard somehow did not see this coming, and that is a little surprising because they're already losing billions of dollars in grants and contracts with the federal government. They can sue about this, but none of these lawsuits preventing the administration from controlling their grants to these universities look like they have any clear-cut wins against the federal government. So everything is pretty much in jeopardy. So I don't know how they didn't see this coming with their attorneys, but here's their response to all of this. Harvard spokesperson Sarah Kennedy O'Reilly wrote in a statement that Harvard is aware of the letter, but stands by its assertion on Monday that the university will not surrender its independence or relinquish its constitutional rights. Quote, "If federal action is taken against a member of our community, we expect it will be based on clear evidence, follow established legal procedures, and respect the constitutional rights afforded to all individuals," according to Kennedy O'Reilly. That is a pretty weak response. And from the Washington Post, they don't think that Trump can revoke Harvard's tax-exempt status. Maybe not him personally, but it doesn't matter. The head of the IRS right now is looking for an excuse to do this to Harvard. They have a new acting head. Here's what they say. Can Trump revoke Harvard's tax-exempt status? Only the IRS, which is part of the U.S. Treasury Department, can investigate and revoke a tax exemption. Oh, okay, so no problem. Federal law explicitly prohibits senior officials of the executive branch, including the president, vice president, and members of their offices, from requesting the IRS conduct or cease an audit or other investigation of a taxpayer. Those found in violation of the law can face a maximum $5,000 fine and 5 years in prison. Ted Mitchell, president of the American Council on Education, called Trump's comment on Harvard's tax exemption another example of this administration just trying to throw punishments at universities and see what sticks. Mitchell, the Undersecretary of Education under Barack Obama, said there is no realistic path for Harvard's exemption to be revoked. So what would happen to Harvard if they lost their tax-exempt status? For Harvard and many other universities, having a tax exemption means they have one less expense to factor into their yearly budgets, Mitchell said. Losing the status would mean Harvard owes the government significant amounts of money annually, probably millions or billions of dollars. It's certainly not trivial, Mitchell said. Okay, here's a little bit more of a detailed clarification on the Supreme Court decision where a university did lose its tax-exempt status because of discrimination. In the 1970s, the IRS revoked the tax exemption for Bob Jones University because the school, though allowing unmarried black students to enroll, denied admission to applicants who were in an interracial marriage. That is not what I said before, so this is the correction. The IRS said it would not allow tax-exempt status for institutions that practice racial discrimination. Oh, like DEI. The legal battle over the revocation went all the way to the Supreme Court, which in 1983 ruled in favor of the IRS. Bob Jones changed its policies and became tax-exempt again in 2017. That's a long time to wait to become tax-exempt again, but that was their policies. And this is from Bloomberg. Harvard says, though, that IRS revoking tax-exempt status would be unlawful. Harvard University pushed back after President Donald Trump said the school should lose its tax-exempt status, and several outlets reported that the IRS is considering the issue, escalating a feud between the federal government and America's richest university. Quote, there's no legal basis to rescind Harvard's tax-exempt status, university spokesperson Jason Newton said in a statement late Wednesday, adding that doing so would harm Harvard's medical research efforts and reduce its ability to provide financial aid for students. As much as Harvard says they want to fund financial aid for students and they want to do lots and lots of medical research, I don't think that's going to save them in this case. They had better figure out how to make peace with the Trump administration and how to do that quickly, because lawyers aren't going to save them, the courts aren't going to save them, and they're supposed to be smart over at Harvard. None of what they're doing is smart enough to keep them out of trouble. Every day it's more bad news for these guys. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another story. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.